everybody. This is Silver Spook, aka Christian Miller. So today I'm gonna be doing something a little different. This is gonna be something a little more serious than usual. I haven't really done anything like this before, so bear with me. But yeah, so today I'm gonna be addressing some serious topics related to gaming culture, game making, and game playing communities, and the larger like internet, let's just say nerd culture in general, in relation to some personal tragedies that have happened in my life. And I'm gonna just I'm not entirely sure where this video is gonna go, but I'm just gonna kind of roll with it. The voice actor who played King Warren, one of the best voice actors on Near Feud, he did an amazing job on as King Warren, as nano augmented hobo, the character Jen, and several other characters in my Cyberpunk adventure game Near Feud. The voice actor who played those characters, he went by the name Amayuro Akago, and his real life name was Martin Amkreutz. But anyway, he passed away earlier this year. Took his own life, committed suicide, and I mentioned it before. I haven't really talked about it. I'm not really sure what it means, how to deal with it. It's been tough to really even comprehend that he's no longer alive and that he took his own life. That's one of the things. And there's another developer or another. He was a modder in the time when I was working on Deus Ex mods. When I was working on Terminus Machina, my Deus Ex Total Conversion. He voice acted as the character Tron in Terminus Machina. He also did a good job. This was a volunteer mod, 100% labor of love. He just did it for the love of making. We love Deus Ex in the modding community. I think we met on Off Topic Productions forums, which is a great community that fostered a lot of learning about game making. A lot of creative energy and really cool content was created there. A lot of learning happened there. People later on got jobs through the Deus Ex modding community and the modding community in general. And anyway, so the voice actor who played Tron is also no longer with us. I can't go too much into the specifics of his passing, but it was pretty dark. I kind of don't even really want to talk about it. Anyway, so in light of these two events, these two pretty tragic events, and I don't know, it's just like I don't know. And it's not. These are not isolated incidents either. Several of my other friends who were in gaming culture, other individuals who worked on Terminus Machina, the Terminus Machina mod. I mean, not just my games. I'm just in general, and other game dev colleagues I've worked in larger game companies, single A companies. We got bought out by a AAA company at one point. Worked for software that was ended up being utilized by Microsoft, but all across the board, like I'm just seeing individuals, mostly younger guys, not always, but a lot of them are younger to middle-aged guys, and they're just getting into negative communities, turning to negative behavior. Just a lot of them are just depressed, suicidal. At least two have committed suicide, and there are several others who are. I see them constantly talking about it. Like, today I'm gonna do it. Today I'm finally gonna end it. And again and again, I've seen this from several of these individuals, and I've tried to say get some help, and try to do the things, listen and talk to them and do those things that are things that you want to try to help them. I mean, that was my job as I was a social worker for young people. I was a social worker for homeless children, immigrants, refugees, people of color, poor, indigent individuals in the inner city. And my job was to kind of be like a surrogate parent for 16 to 21 year olds at that time. And the problems are similar, so those kids are mostly like they were like inner city, urban, rougher crowd, less of the nerdy computer game crowd, but there's similar problems where they don't really know who they are, they don't know what they're doing in life, they don't have anybody to look up to, their parents are incarcerated, are on drugs, they're not, they can't find a place for themselves in a society, they try to get jobs, they can't get jobs, they try to do things with their life, they can't get anywhere, they turn to drug dealing, they turn to crime. Like I had literal Grand Theft Auto convicts, I had literal individuals who were in Bloods and Crips gangs, who I was supposed to be kind of giving life advice to. Like if you play Near Feud, characters like Protege, this character who is an actual drug dealer, and a higher level, he gets up and he becomes a higher level criminal in the underworld of that world. And there were kids like that I was dealing with, and and it was always hard, like, cause I didn't always feel like I had my own life sorted out. Like at the time I was homeless. For some of the time while I was a social worker and teacher for these kids, I was, 30, 28, 29, 30 years old. I'm like working as a teacher, working full time, and like living in my parents' closet with my wife and kids. We're eating spoonfuls of peanut butter living in the back of a Mazda Tribute. Like, as I mentioned, that's how I finished Near Feud. So I was like, I didn't have my own life sorted out. Like, I mean, I was in a little bit better place. Like, I actually had a stable job and was trying to participate more in society, and I was a little further along, but I wasn't, so I never really felt fully qualified. But I do feel like, I did feel like a responsibility to those kids, those kids from the poor ghetto of Honolulu, Hawaii, where I'm from. I felt a responsibility to those kids and to those people who didn't have anyone there for them. Like, at least I had parents. Like, that's one thing I had. I had parents who at least, at least cared for me. So that's one thing I had. If I didn't have that, I probably would have been with those kids, probably in prison, milking Whole Foods goats for 74 cents an hour, putting out California wildfires for $1 an hour, like the prison laborers there. So by the grace of having parents and my dad and everything that they sacrificed for me, I had the opportunity to help kids who didn't have that. That's the way I saw it, right? And so similarly, like, I see a lot of these young people in the geek and the gaming culture and online internet culture. Like, I've been on the internet, like, I consider ever since I was about 5 years old. I mean, it's kind of a long story. Like, just some quick short autobiography of myself, just to give you some idea. So I was born and raised in Honolulu, Hawaii, on the not so nice side of the coconut trees part of the city, where mostly the immigrants, service industry workers, and the basically non-white communities live. Although recently, this area is gentrifying with skyrocketing property values, which is part of the reason why my family and I have moved to the Big Island of Hawaii to live in a small off-grid house. Our house is actually technically condemned. We don't really have tap water. It was coming out foul smelling, although recently I fixed it. There's a lot of damage. There's actually negative. The cost to get this house up was like negative tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. So that's where we are now. And my parents are both Catholic school teachers. I went to a private Catholic school for most of my youth. I had slum friends in the neighborhood that I lived in. They were living 20 to a house, surviving on ramen and Spam, like, every night, like Spam ramen, or just a can of Spam with some rice. That's it. From food stamps. They're just dirt poor. On weekends, we would run through the forest barefoot, playing games like Rock War, which involves throwing rocks at each other and trying not to get bloodied. They were crazy kids, but we had good times building tree houses, cannonballing into Tin Roof, which is a big pond in the back of the valley where I'm from. But then on Monday, my siblings and I would all get in our cheap old Toyota Corolla, kind of like Carl Carbon's one, and we'd all get shuttled off to a fancy preparatory school where everyone wore nice uniforms and dodgeball was illegal to avoid lawsuits, in contrast to our Rock War games. I was an overweight Hawaiian-looking kid from the ghetto amongst a lot of wealthy, fairer-skinned whites and Asians, and as you might imagine, I was kind of singled out, to put it lightly. To be perfectly honest, I was basically I was like isolated and fairly bullied my whole life. And like a lot of the people in these cultures, like or hikikomori cultures, where they kind of withdraw inward, that I was very much like that. I basically lived in my own world, and I played video games. That's what I did. I didn't really talk to many people in school. People didn't want to talk to me. They basically were just like, oh, there's that weird, different looking, there's that fat kid. Oh, we don't want to talk to you. If I tried to talk to girls, it was like, you're embarrassing me. They would give you this look, and first they call you names, and then eventually they just give you this look, and then laugh when you walked away. So I had that experience. Like I hear a lot of people who are in the incel culture, like talking about like just like being ostracized and just not being accepted. And that was like 18 years of my life. Like every day was basically like torture, to be completely honest. I didn't want to go to school. Like I contemplated all kind of very dark thoughts. Like I've had, hating my classmates, hating all of them, like, just dreams of like seeing them all, just like, I had really dark thoughts because like every day I would come to school and it would just be like, nobody wants me here. Nobody likes me here. I'll never have friends or a girlfriend. I had a couple friends later on in my life, and we all basically couple friends. One of them was named Kama. We all looked the same and kind of stuck together, but we're like, yeah, we're never gonna fit in this world. I had some dark thoughts throughout grade school and high school, and video games, they were an escape from this troubling and often harsh reality. Like in games, I was happy and I was in control. Anyway, so the first game I ever played was Super Mario World for Nintendo. I got the NES for Christmas when I was 4 or 5. I don't know if that's how old I am, so I'm dating myself here. I remember the first time I beat Mario, it was like 12 a.m. and I just spent the last 6 hours burning the midnight oil to get through Bowser's freaking castle. I was so ecstatic after saving Princess Toadstool. I raced into my mom's bedroom at midnight, yelling about the good news, and I ran so fast I didn't see that there was a light bulb on the ground, and I ended up stepping on it with glass slicing right through my second toe and nearly cut it in half. I was alternating between tears of celebration and agony, bleeding all over the place, all over her knitting and blankets that she was fixing as she rushed me to the hospital, and I got 20 stitches. It was one of my earliest memories. Yeah, so anyway, so school was rough. I played video games pretty much the whole time. SNES, PlayStation. I would spend 3 hours, after school from or sometimes 6 hours from 4 o'clock to 10 o'clock. My dad would drop me off at the Fun Factory arcade, and I would be playing, Street Fighter 2, Killer Instinct, Primal Rage, all the shooters. Like when I was little, it was like Galaga, and then later on they got Mortal Kombat. When Blood and Guts started to be, ripping people's spines out of their. In the 90s, that started to be a thing that was happening. And so, I played a lot of games, but I'd always been isolated. I played some sports, but, and that was also kind of a rough experience. I played football. I played some basketball and volleyball, but I kind of didn't really hang out, and I didn't really feel like one of the guys, I'm pretty, a big guy, as I said, and that kind of set me apart from a lot of the other, I'm kind of a little closer to The Rock. I'm nowhere near as tall as The Rock, but I'm built more like that and less like, the average Asian or Caucasian like most of the people were. So, but I don't know, I didn't really feel like I was part of that group either. But another thing it taught me was about, I do know what locker room talk is, and having a lot of guys in the room, and I kind of know, that I kind of learned about, the way that guys get when they're together in a group, and it's the old boys club, and a lot of it revolves around sex, and the grabbing of parts, having the sex with this and that part, and it can get kind of gross, and in connection with some of the way that the treatment of women and the discussion and the kind of casual disrespect of women in some aspects of nerd and gaming culture nowadays is something that was the norm, both in locker rooms and sports, and also in aspects of the gaming culture. Maybe it was less apparent to us at the time. I was playing Half-Life, Doom, Half-Life, Counter-Strike, StarCraft, Warcraft, World of Warcraft, Unreal Tournament. Played a lot of FPSs late high school and college. Deus Ex is my favorite game of all time, as I mentioned. Throughout my life, I've basically been a gamer from the 90s, 80s, 90s, to noughties, to the teens. that's kind of been like my thing, like gaming, and got more into a variety of different subcultures. Like I played some music in high school, did some sports, played some football, played in bands. I played in alternative bands. I was really into Smashing Pumpkins in high school. Like I probably still could tab out for you like the guitartabs.com notes for Below for Butterfly Wings. I can probably still play a lot of the solos if I gave my fingers a few hours to work all the arthritic rust out, and maybe if I replace it with a cybernetic Adam Jensen like right hand, or like Carl Carver's hand, but maybe like a better version of that, I might be able to play the guitar. And Deus Ex was one of those games that really just blew my mind. Shortly after playing it, I got way into Cyberpunk. I started walking around in 90-degree 100% humidity Hawaii weather in a trench coat in Chinatown. You can imagine the chafing, imagine it was Chiba City. I must have looked really weird. I started hanging out on a Cyberpunk mud called Iconoclast, which was full of super smart, super weird folks. These are like, William Gibson and Bruce Bethke and Ursula Le Guin's spiritual predecessors, their writing groups. Chuck Palahniuk, they're like really well-read, very well-educated individuals in this group, and I was basically looked up to them. They were like the coolest people on the planet, other than William Gibson, the godfather of Cyberpunk. So I binge read all of Gibson's work, from Neuromancer to Big End trilogy, the Sprawl trilogy, Burning Chrome. I highly recommend anyone go back and read that stuff. A lot of it, contrary to a lot of modern day depictions, it's much more refined and much more, I would say, much more progressive than even a lot of things that are happening in 2018. Anyway, so I read all of that and I was super hooked on it. Actually got to meet William Gibson in person in Vancouver, as I mentioned. He tweeted the birth of our first kid, which was really cool, and kind of probably not good for my megalomaniacal tendencies, but he's a good guy. I also got to interview him on the Spook Podcast, which is really awesome. I really like the cyberpunk culture. I like the people. I love the superlative quality of writing, the trench coats and cyberware thing, but I also think I identify with the attitude, which was this kind of like unbridled rage. Where a lot of like ivory tower sci-fi stars, tall, strong-jawed West Point graduates exploring and colonizing the cosmos, getting the girl, and isn't the astounding world of the future just dandy? Cyberpunk was fundamentally a middle finger to civilization. Cyberpunk was about the 99%. It was about the slum dogs who end up street hustling with razor girls in cyberspace. Right? It was about the kids that I was working with. As I mentioned, it was about where I was from, my neighborhood. It was about a world of criminals working for bigger mega corporate criminals. Cyberpunk was revulsion with the way the world is, with ridiculous wealth and incredible poverty. No pretense about covering it up. No airbrushing the world into a postcard. It shoves the neon-bathed warts right up into your face. As I mentioned before, Hawaii is basically cyberpunk dystopia is here. Just that we're very good at papering over the more dystopic parts, so that we can sell luxury vacations to wealthy individuals who want to pay a lot for Mai Tais, Taki hula dances, bastardizations of the culture, and then fly back off. And thanks for all your cash. Right? I have a lot of bones to pick with aspects of consumer culture here. Anyways, but so Cyberpunk, it was like I totally identify with it. I was like, yes, there are flaws even in Paradise, and I ate that stuff up. I worked on a total conversion mod of Deus Ex called Terminus Machina for about a year and a half between 2011 and 2013. It was the first big game project where I was a lead developer and had creative control. The modus operandi was make the ideal game that I want to play. So I set about taking the already jaw-dropping awesomeness of Deus Ex and adding in crafting, wireless hacking, a hunger system, and a ton of other features. And I also wanted to create a totally immersive original world that was basically Neuromancer for the present. So I liked what the critique of capitalism, crony capitalism, market solutions to everything, neoliberalism, Reaganomics, the Thatcher thing, and just the way that the excess of the 80s, which Neuromancer was a great critique of. And I wanted to take that and apply it to the modern what at that time the late noughties, early teens, and now the later teens. That's it's kind of what I've always been trying to do with Terminus Machina, with Neofeed, all my games. So with a society in a collapse as giant banks and corporations let the world go into freefall, tense cities and populist revolts and rioting and mass unemployment due to mass AI automation is amok everywhere. This is Terminus Machina, and this is a game that I wrote this like a while ago. I'm sorry that I have like this weird Cassandra complex where stuff I write ends up coming true. Not all of it, but I got into a lot of different cultures, got into music, got into a lot of different things. And eventually, I got into, as I mentioned, teaching, working with, doing kind of like human services. Got into teaching game development, and that kind of blended. So I was doing STEM. I was like teaching robotics classes to, like underprivileged children in poorer communities, and that was really great. To give them, kind of give them access to STEM fields and things that they wouldn't have access to. With all they had access to was they could look at, Straight Outta Compton was a favorite movie. They loved it because it was somebody that looked like them, and it was somebody they could aspire to be. Ice Cube. Unfortunately, it was like, they all wanted to be Ice Cube, millionaire, rapper, movie star, mega producer, rich people. That was not gonna pan out. Like, sorry, trying to win rap battles in my classroom is not gonna fly, son. Like, sit down, motherfucker. And I actually had to get good at rapping in order to kind of like I would like come up with these like raps about the Constitution to kind of like put them in their place. Fun fact: like, if you want to be good at hip hop, you gotta like learn the English language. You gotta get your literacy on. I went through high school, college, and I never really figured out what I wanted to do. But I remember having a lot of times where having these feelings, right? And a lot of these feelings that I hear a lot of the guys, the gamer guys, some of the ones that I work with who later got into extreme depression, started getting like really deep into certain, subforums on the internet, in particular some of the, more incel culture, which, like, do we have to, like, I think like we kind of know that there are some negative consequences to these, right? There's already been like several, mass killings. I think we can all find the statistics to those, and just a number of depressed and suicidal young people. There's a lot of negativity there, bad things happening there. A lot of them come out of gaming and nerd culture, like stuff. They play the same games that I played. And several of these guys, they were on my team. One of them I know is like getting further into incel culture. He's like talking, using a lot of their terminology, and he was one of the guys who worked on my game. It's difficult, right? Because it's hard to really. I can listen to them and talk to them, and encourage them to get away from those negative behaviors. Young guys, especially, they're really trying really hard to make their way in life. Trying to get jobs. I know one of the guys, he's constantly talking about like he's trying to get a job. He's like having hard times. Some of it is like sometimes you just got to get out of bed. You got to put your pants on and go to work. Right, but also it is like the economy is not what it was 4 years ago, to put it lightly. So there's complex net of perfect storm of factors from the society and external world, and internal factors that are stopping individuals from getting where they need to be. And in the case of like the hikikomori in Japan, and it is very similar, right? In Japan, where basically I think hikikomori is an individual. Mostly young guys who shut themselves in, who don't leave their home for 6 months or more. An estimate suggests that nearly 500,000 Japanese youth have become these social recluses. It's part of the culture that kind of demands kind of this kind of, a lot of times it's pressure from the parents to get straight A's, and an A- is like, it's like a death sentence. Like you can't get that. You have to have, and I knew kids who were, I'm actually part Japanese, and I had other friends who were, went to much more schools that were much harsher, and a lot of them had mental breakdowns and withdrew from society. And that wasn't even in Japan, that was in Hawaii. And and there's that aspect of it. And then plus Japanese has a very pressure to conform is very strong. And so if you're seen as kind of a slacker and you attempt to get in, if you're ostracized in any way and you don't meet a lot of expectations, it's very easy to fall off kind of the ship, right? And once you kind of you start being seen as a slacker, everyone just you maybe when you try to assimilate, you're just looked at as one of those people, and then you're further ostracized, and so you just kind of withdraw further into yourself. So like, I'm never going outside again. I'm just gonna be in my room and lock myself in the bedroom, play video games, play my Dance Revolution or my anime, watch my anime, listen to music, and never gonna talk to anybody outside because. At least in this world, I had these feelings, like I had that feeling, like I don't want to ever go back to school, because school is like hell. I just want to play Mario. I just want to play Sonic the Hedgehog. I just want to, play, Half-Life and StarCraft and Deus Ex like all day long. And I wish I could just cancel school, but I couldn't because of other reasons, and part of his American culture is a little bit different, but I had that same feeling. Like, school and the real world is hell. Like, why would I ever want to go out and deal with that? Let alone like trying to have relationships with actual living women in the real world. Like, that's never gonna happen. It's ridiculous. I'm just never gonna try. So I had the same kind of feelings. Like, and I feel like where I was at when I was 26, I could have easily just become full incel. Like, if I tended to kind of I kind of had these conversations with myself in my head. Kind of sounds schizophrenic, but mostly it was kind of like just thinking these things to myself. I didn't have this kind of echo chamber outside where I could like post images or post things on a Reddit subreddit, and people could comment on it and hear all kind of negative things that reflected back, and kind of self-confirm these negative thoughts, and go further and further in a downward spiral, right? So, and also it's just like those things were less prominent than they were in the late 90s and teens, and certainly in 2018. But yeah, I had those same thoughts, I had those same feelings. Like, I didn't have any relationships throughout all of high school. Like, I didn't have any girlfriends. I went to the prom with a girl, and when we got to the prom, she for some reason we were like sitting down to eat, right? And we had like spaghetti and pasta and all this like nice buffet gourmet food, and she puts the fork and the knife down, and she's just picking up the food, like picking up the spaghetti and just like shoving it in her mouth, and everybody's looking at her like, what the hell are you doing? Like, what are you doing, right? And people couldn't figure out what was happening, and she basically ate all the food as fast as she could, and then she basically just left the table and basically ditched me. So yeah, I was ditched by my date at the prom, and that was the only one who had that happen to them. So that was a little bit rough. That was like my only date that I had throughout all of high school. I had friends who would hang out, and sometimes there would be a girl in the group sometimes, and we basically were like the weirdos who hung out in the corner by the weight room. I was a weird Smashing Pumpkins, and I was like into MIDI tracking on a Yamaha PSR 540 and studying like Tchaikovsky and trying to make weird MIDI symphonies and with mellotrons, and I had like a guitar set up with like 16 Boss pedals and a Yamaha. I'd just be like geeking out on all these musical electronics, but mostly doing it in my own little world. And yeah, I just kind of like I had these thoughts. I'd have like nights where I just go home crying, like when I was 16, 18, 19, 20. Just be like, I'm never gonna have a girlfriend. I'm gonna like forever alone. I'm just gonna be like my genes will never propagate, and my genes are basically telling you, yeah, you're a useless piece of meat that can't help us continue these like lines of deoxyribonucleic acid code for no other reason than because that's what evolution has dictated across billions of years of this Mortal Kombat competition called the evolution of life. And you can have these thoughts, but it doesn't make you feel any less bad when you can't get a relationship with a woman. You can't you don't know how a woman you were just sitting there imagining how a woman feels to yourself for the first 20 something years of your life, and and you look back and it's like, yeah, that was that's too bad. Like I kind of wish I could go back and tell myself things about that. Like, things are gonna get better one day, and high school sucks. High school just sucks. Period. Like, people get shitty. Like there's a lot of things you can say and this and that, but high school is just sucks. And people can, especially kids, left to their own devices, they can be total barbarians. Like, this is just the reality. I mean, this is why they had cyberbullying. That's why they had like anti-bullying campaigns throughout much of the 90s and teens, right? Like and that was none of that stuff was cool. And but that's the truth is people can be really shitty and assholes, especially when you put a lot of people who don't really want to be there with a lot of other people, just arbitrary groups of people, just sit and young people, children, put them together for 6 hours a day for 14, 18 years of their life. And you can have it's like the Stanford prison experiment in some senses. You just put a lot of people together in a confined space, and bad things can happen. It's part of the reason why, not the only reason, but part of the reason why we made the decision to homeschool, is because if I had the opportunity, right? If I felt like I had the option, like I could leave this space and go to another space where people weren't just gonna be fucking assholes, just going like, "You fucking fatso, don't talk to me, don't look at me, fucking weirdo," and everyone just laughing at me every day for 18 years, I probably would have chosen to leave that space. It's kind of like being stuck. It's like being stuck in a shitty ass Twitch stream where everyone is an immature little baby asshole and there's no moderator, or like being in a horrible, you know, like a troll fest that you can't leave for like 6 hours a day every day, right? In the internet, at least you can like leave those spaces, right? I mean, sometimes psychologically you feel entrapped, feel like kind of like addicted, like this kind of like masochistic digital self-harm addiction to getting yourself, you know, posting a picture of yourself and getting, you know, abuse and hate and, you know, whatever, misogyny, racism, just harassment. But I mean, with the internet, at least you have some ability to leave spaces in most cases. In school, you don't. You know, school is just like school is kind of like a physical manifestation of the cesspool aspects of the internet. That's kind of the way I kind of starting to think about it. Just part of why, you know, not all school, of course, but if you're one of those people who happens to end up in the shitty end of this, I mean, if you're the popular kid, it's great. All you have is positive reinforcement every day. Oh, you're so attractive. Thank you so much for talking to me. Thanks for signing my yearbook. Thanks for being my friend. Thanks for, you know, that was a great touchdown pass. Steve, great job, Steve. And here's your job, Steve, for the next 30 years of your life. You'll never have to look for another one, and you'll make enough money to support your family, have a house and a car and healthcare and transportation and food for like your rest of your life, basically. You know, and you know, as I'm doing a generational thing, you know, that's something that's another pressure on young people that is another compounding, synergistically shitty factor that works with the other ones that makes. That causes more of this negativity that I feel like more of it that's coming out, especially on the internet, is due to that kind of stuff. But anyway, so, you know, but it's like, yeah, people can be shit, man. People can be dicks, and you know, like the internet, right? What can you do? Like, what can you do? Like, I couldn't, like, I didn't realize I could, and I want to give my kids the opportunity. Like, I don't want to have to like say that, you know, sorry, you know, little spooks, you gotta go. You know, I have a daughter, she's 6, 7 years old. You know, now you got to go to a school. She's kind of very, you know, outgoing, and she's more outgoing than I was. Very friendly. She loves people. She's very sweet, right? But I mean, I know how the schools are in some areas. I've been to them. I've taught in them. I've worked with the kids. You know, and again, you put even nice kids. You put any of them in a small confined space, and you have one of them looks different, and stuff can happen. You know, many of the schools are underfunded. Teachers are overstressed. There's strikes across the country happening. You know, and they don't have all the time and energy to put into policing, you know, abusive behaviors, or, you know, negative social behaviors of children, and shit happens. Like, I've got people all, you know, from this island who are telling me, yeah, I'm just like, I'm hearing all kind of my kids getting like really harassed and bullied in school, and because they look different. I mean, sometimes like, on this island, it's even there's more Hawaiians, and so if you are white in some of the schools here, you might actually get more bullied. Again, it's just you look different, you're different, and you're outside of our tribe. Oh, well, now we will use that against you, not because they're like malicious or evil per se, but just I don't know, it's hard to really say. It's just kind of a thing that happens, you know. It's this weird mob, tribal, DNA level, subconscious, like, you know, it's like why do people fight wars? You know, it's like, right, part of it's just like it's built into the human nature to fight wars so that groups can survive against larger groups when things get scarce. Who knows why these particular things happen and when they happen where. But this is something that happens. So, you know, so we want to give our daughter the opportunity to, like the internet, right? If you're in a shitty forum, or if you're in like the incel Reddit subreddit, and there's a lot of negativity there, you're being kind of like constantly, you know, reinforcing these negative trains of thought, engaging in this kind of like epistemological masochism, where anything that anyone else says is wrong, because they are, you know, lying to you, because they are from the other side, the groups that can kind of like self-insulate. And anything that anyone says that's against it, I mean, not just in like necessarily insult, but, you know, in like radical hate groups, in radical of various religions, right? Whether it's a Christian or Muslim or Hindu or whatever it is, if you break yourself off far enough, you can say that anything anyone tells you that you need to stop is all lies, because anything they say is like axiomatically false. They're trying to trick you. They're trying to destroy your group. They're out to destroy you. So anything they say is only fuel against them. So anyway, so those spaces, right? But and it's really, sometimes it can be tough. But on the internet, it's a little bit easier. You can stop going to those spaces. It's just kind of like if you don't take anything else away, just know that one thing that you can do, and a lot of times, smart people, they think that, I have a PhD in philosophy, or like I'm like a high level, a Goldman Sachs high frequency trading algorithm programmer, or I'm a programmer for defense contractors. I'm so freaking smart, I've solved all the world problems in my sleep, and I like win all arguments that I have on the internet, which I have for 6 hours a day until I run out of energy and fall asleep in a pool of Mountain Dew and Cheetos. I'm just kidding, but people who feel, and I, sometimes, a lot of Cyberpunk fans and a lot of nerds, their identity is wrapped up in this idea that they are very intelligent, very smart. They know the answers. They have to think of themselves as reasonably well informed and not subject to being manipulated, having their minds be affected by anything anyone else could say, things that they read. But the truth is, like, even very intelligent individuals, like, and I know some of them, like, one guy's really smart, computer, like artificial intelligence, one of the top 10% AI programmers, machine learning developers, and he's like, after reading these, these incel forums and threads for so long and so much every day, I started to think in those terms, and I'm thinking about, who's that? That must be, content warning. It's going to be some language, there's like a beta. There's a beta cuck, who's getting, there's that, getting blocked. Look at that Stacy walking down the street. Oh, that Becky doesn't have any chance, but he's not necessarily identified with that culture, but he's thinking in those terms. Just because he's reading it for whatever you're reading it for the lulls, or because, I don't know, I mean, why are you reading it, right? I mean, it's like, for research, I mean, you do get susceptible, and it has been shown that, over time, spending a lot of time reading those things, it starts to, infiltrate. Like, humans are chameleons, right? And they start to take on aspects of whatever physical, fashion, linguistic and social, intellectual, psychological culture that they surround themselves with. That's just kind of what happens. So if nothing else, just know that you can remove yourself. And so for schools, like, that's why I'm saying, like, we want to give our child the opportunity to remove herself from the spaces which are negative, and to choose, to have some power over the choice of who she associates with. I mean, apart from a lot of other factors in terms of, like, the pedagogy, the type of skills that will become necessary in the 21st century. I mean, kids should feel like they aren't trapped in those prisons, right? Like, you shouldn't feel like you're trapped inside of that forum that's full of hate, right? Or in that company that has a negative culture detrimental against your values and doing things that you don't really believe in. I don't know, like, for example, the Google engineers who signed a petition demanding that Google stop creating, facial recognition technology to help Hellfire drones better identify and autonomously kill civilian targets, including American citizens, which is happening. So that's something that, that's just one case, but there are other cases where, I have this nice cushy job. I don't want to rock the boat, right? Just make whatever technology you want. I don't care who, I don't particularly like that 9 out of 10 people that this bomb kills might just be, innocent people at a wedding party, or kids, in a hospital, or people walking down the street who happen to have a piece of, white phosphorus or submunition or shrapnel from a Hellfire missile go, slice through their aorta and kill them, and they die in the street, while their children have to watch, like, they don't want to, that sucks. But also, I need a job, and it's inconvenient for me to, like, do anything about it, right? So everybody has this kind of, there's these cultures and there's degrees in which the systems, try to, there's degrees in which everybody has a certain amount of agency. But again, it's doing the right thing and doing the thing that will make your life convenient and make your career very successful will often, butt heads, Like, for example, I'm not bringing it back to the geek and the nerd and game culture. Riot Games, I don't know if you heard about this, right? One of the biggest game studios has been hit with multiple allegations of fostering a hostile, sexist work environment, with one of the guys who was working there. Let me get his name so I don't screw this up. His name is Barry Hawkins, former manager. He wrote a lengthy piece in which he talked about some of the concerns that he had at the studio, who was fostering a kind of negative culture that was very negative and harmful towards and inappropriate towards women. He was there for some time, and he eventually felt like he had to speak out. You can go on and read about it, basically. And but that took some balls to come out and say anything, right? I mean, because the truth is, for this one guy who said something, for that one guy who brought it up, and he said like, "Hey, I don't think it's appropriate to be kind of like making these like rape jokes," and that's what it was like. And he wasn't fired, but it was something that basically you're never gonna advance. There's a ceiling and a wall. There's ceiling and walls on your potential career paths in this company, so we recommend you find something else. And so anyway, so he did, but that was one guy, right? There's a lot of other people, right, who heard, saw, experienced this culture daily, right? And it's always something that, and any one of those, anybody could have said something, right? But, and maybe some of them did, but, that went on for years. But the truth is, right, it's hard because if anybody could have said something, and if they did, that could jeopardize their job. And you're looking at a nice game development job at one of the biggest game companies in the world. You got this nice salary, right? And you don't want to jeopardize that, right? And so doing the right thing and doing the thing that will make you successful generally will come into conflict at some point. Like it came into conflict for me. I was working for institutions, and I saw where things that were going on inside of them. Or basically, I made some decisions. I lost jobs for things that I said. And I left a city where I had a salary and potential to move up. I had actually an option to move up to become a manager at the job I was working before. Basically, I said, I don't agree with this culture. I agree with the mission of what I was doing, and what I was doing was good. Like, which was working with kids, working with, populations, trying to get kids off the streets and into jobs rather than going to prison or engaging in crime, engaging in negative behaviors, ripping, cars off, all those kind of things, right? And getting in prison, inflating that prison industrial complex. That was great. That was great. But the higher culture of it, I was like, this is the deeper level of this institution is not something that I agree with. And I basically, part of it why I left was values, and part of it was just that city, that whole city's values I don't agree with. And it really resonated with me when Barry Hawkins said you can change your organization or you can change your organization. It's like you can try to change the culture internally, and I try to do that sometimes. Tried to argue. I spent like 3 hours arguing points and like reasons and things that I saw, like these things are not acceptable. It's kind of similar, actually. I was sat down with the CEO and the CFO and the CTO and all the EIEIOs, the CEIEIOs are all sitting down in a circle, folding their hands, with their like, gold star cufflinks. You got the art, you got the art school dropout, pushing brands over there. You got the gold star kid, straight A kid from Obama's classmate probably, shuffling his paper, doing all kind of fun accounting games, sitting looking at me, and it's like, this, like, I can't afford this. Where is the money going here? This is like unacceptable. People are like, this turnover rate's very high, and they're like, basically like, don't be so, pushy. Just, think of all the good you can do. Don't worry about how little people are being paid or how things are being run. Just think of all the good things you could do. Don't worry about the fact that, some of our teachers are homeless even, while they're supposed to be helping the homeless. Don't worry, just like, why are you being so sensitive? Don't just be cool, just be cool, man. Just be like everyone else. Just live with your parents till you're like 45 years old. And then they die and then you have nothing and you're homeless. Just be cool with that, And it's like, no, fuck you. You're like, like, fuck you, and it's like that's and sometimes it comes to that, but that's tough because then you're like, okay, well, now we don't have a salary, so now we're gonna have to really, that's why I live in a lava zone. I live right next to the volcano that erupts and it shoots 3,000 degree lava all over you. Cause we're okay with that. My wife's from the up in the great white north, where the polar bears and the ground freezes for 6 months out of the year, frozen ground and freaking dire wolves and 1-ton grizzly bears knocking on your door. I mean, a little bit of lava and, living with no drinking water. It's no problem. everybody has a choice. I didn't know I had a choice. And maybe I didn't have as much choice as I thought in school. But I do think that everybody has a choice. What institutions they participate in, what kind of internet forums they go to. And I want my kids to have the choice and be able to like have the autonomy to be like, I don't like these people and the way that they're dealing with me. And like, either I can try to change that culture and be like, hey, this bullying shit sucks, because I never really stood up for myself either. And it was never encouraged, really. It was like my parents were basically pretty hippie. They were like peace and love, and But it's possible that if I had punched one of the kids in the face, I was bigger than all of them. I could have knocked any of them out pretty easily. They're like little. I could have probably breathed, and they could have knocked half of them out. If I had actually, if I was more of a bully, I could have easily become the biggest bully, just because of my size. But like I wasn't, and so it just continued. But that doesn't necessarily that's going to change things, right? Because I know other kids who got bullied, and I work with these kids, and then they got into fights, like they got into big fights and blighted other kids' nose. That didn't stop it, right? They just got expelled, right? And then into other negative behaviors, other gang-related behaviors. So it's hard to say, but you can try to change that culture. So you can try to change that school and be like, hey, school, can you like stop this bullying bullshit? Why is my daughter like being like harassed every day? Or encourage her to like stand up for herself. But if that doesn't change, right? Like you can go to the trolls and say like, hey trolls, can you stop trolling my freaking forum? Can you stop like using your inappropriate language and just abusing everyone in this Twitch stream, forum you're in this chat room, wherever it is, right? But if they don't, then it's like you're fucking gone. There's ban. It's like the ban gun, right? Or if the moderator is like, well, I'm not feeling like moderating this, I want to let people say whatever they want. I don't care. Like, let's have bullies all over the place, or they're just not for whatever reason, or they're like I like them bullying you. I don't care. Then you could be like, well, fuck this place, right? I'm gonna leave this place. So I want my daughter to have the opportunity to like be able to choose to leave the spaces. If she can't change the culture, if you can't change your school, then leave your school. If you can't change your forum, leave the forum. If you can't change your friends that you're following or your social media platform, leave the platform. And if you can't change AAA gaming culture, I work for big game companies. You can't change that culture. Get fired from it. Like, actually, a lot of people got let go all of a sudden. Same kind of thing. I didn't go back and try to find a job in the corporate gaming industry, where as I mentioned before, I'm working on games, and the biggest creative decisions is like, should the Queen of Hearts have rubies or sapphires in her crown? Should the Suicide Jack have the knife going in the right or the left side of his head? That's the biggest input. That's not game design to me. That's just boring, meaningless decisions on the way to making Solitaire version 85.6 for Microsoft version whatever, right? So and I was like, and then you leave that culture, right? It's a trick of systems in society to lock you in, right? That's why we have initiation rituals. That's why we have mortgages. That's why we have very long career track pathways, and it's really hard to get all the A's and the straight A's and the robotics. Having a STEM first competition with your mentor being Elon Musk on one side and Bill Gates on the other, having all these accreditations and classes, and beating everyone else for the bar exam and working your whole life up to this, and then now you're locked in, and now you can never do anything else but work for that law firm or that corporation or that big pharmaceutical company or that big military industrial complex or that big political viper swamp, and you're locked into it, right? And you can never. The purpose of that is to deeply invest you personally in that culture, such that you can never make a choice to leave if that organization values no longer, or you discover that they never did align with your values, right? So I don't know. So anyway, this is like getting really philosophical, isn't it? Anyway, so you can tell my dad was a professional theologian and bioethicist and a criminology professor. Anyways, so and so that's kind of, maybe that's the core message, right? Is kids, young people, young guys, wherever you're at, you should feel, don't feel that you're locked into it. The number one thing, if you're in a negative community that's treating people badly, particularly if you're in certain subforums, if you feel that your culture, the place that you're in, especially if it's a place that you can easily leave, right? Like a non-professional, like just some internet forum, try to get out. if you can. I mean, if it's your workplace, right? Like the guy who worked at Riot Games, that's going to be a little harder. It's going to take a little more balls, and maybe, and if you're in a more, I mean, this guy could get a job easily afterward. So that's another factor, right? If you're somebody who just like, you don't have a lot of experience, you don't have a lot of friends in the industry, you kind of lucked into the job. I mean, it's going to be harder for you to just like up and move because maybe you don't have anywhere else to move to, except into a cardboard box, right, under the overpass. So again, the reason why I'm doing this, right, is I in light of the passing of rest in peace, some really cool people whose life ended way too early, and in light of people that I know, friends, colleagues, in the nerd and cyberpunk communities that are becoming suicidal and just hating themselves, hating other people, through these various cultures, echo chambers, or just internet communities that foster, unfortunately, some very negative things. The goal for this is to try to, I feel obligated to kind of do something in the same way that I help the kids from my valley. I feel like obligated to help some of the people who are not doing as well as I'm doing. I feel a little bit, almost. I'm lucky. Like I'm not making tons of money. I'm not doing super awesome, but Near Feud is a game that I made. It's my passion project. It's like my soul is like, I like bled into that game. Like it is who I am. And it's also now selling into thousands of copies, and I'm able to continue to work on games. And I'm married to the most amazing wife ever. We're still like in love. It's been 10 years. We still do, now I know what a woman feels like, but like we physically attracted, mentally attracted. We have conversations. We talk about everything. She knows me better than anyone else on the planet. I can talk about literally, and we do talk about like literally anything and everything for like hours every day. Like we have 2 kids who are amazing. I love my kids. I love where I am right now. It's, we don't have running water. The electricity goes out sometime. The road is made out of like gravel. It's not paved, and it's been dug up by a hurricane. But we have to drive to get our drinking water. The house is falling apart. But all in all, like I'm just in a really good place. And it's I guess I wanted to help people out and help people in the nerd community who are hurting the same way I was helping kids living in horrible conditions, sleeping in the street, young people with no direction. So here's some direction for you. In your life, if you're young and you're like, I don't know what to do, I'm having trouble with women, I can't get laid, maybe I'm forever gonna be alone, and maybe I'm gonna try to join these groups, these incel forums, because at least it's an escape and it's an outlet. I'm not gonna tell you how to run your romantic life. I'm not gonna tell you how to make friends and influence people, or but here's some what will work for me. Silver Spook's pro tips for winning at relationships, aka the Game of Bones. That's the last true joke I'm gonna make. Number 1, relationships are not games. So the first tip, it's just the framing, right? The way in which you view it can really impact your success of it. I know the incel frame, right, which is that there's this biologically determined attractiveness. Attractiveness is set, nothing you can do about it, right? And society is rigging the game against you, and a cynical world, viewpoint where a lot of guys, you're just never gonna ever have sex or have a relationship. And obviously look at the statistics, like most guys end up with women. And I looked at some of the folks, and I know these folks, and they're like, most of them are actually, some of them are like more attractive than the average person. They're perfectly normal looking guys for the most part. And because as I mentioned before, there is kind of this like built-in male, especially when you get hyper masculine male framing, as everything is like a battle to be won and a conquest, and there's kind of this pressure to score, to smash, to crush, to wreck, right, to be victorious, right, in the battle. It's kind of this glory, and but when you think of it that way, it really is counterproductive. I mean, if you really actually want to have actual relationships, or whatever gender you're interested in, a key part of that for me was not focusing on having sex or getting a girlfriend. Although that is difficult, right, for the reasons that I mentioned. There's like the male counterpart of the female biological clock, right? It kind of just tells you, like, your genes are like, okay, now it's time. The testosterone's flowing. The balls are dropping. Everyone's around you is getting. There's this pressure there's a hyperactive need just coming out of your DNA that's telling you, screaming at you, you need to have sex. If you don't have sex, you're a worthless genetic material propagator, right? The selfish gene. And there's just truth to that, and it isn't really, the genes don't really care how happy or not happy you are. All they care about is continuation of genetic code. And, and so it's difficult though. It's difficult to deal with that. Especially if you're in a world that's, in a negative society, you don't have a lot of support, you don't have a lot of love in your life, you don't have a lot of guidance, right? And that's another big common thread I see is, hikikomori, the isolated teens get into, negative criminal behavior in the ghetto, and also in incel culture. So a lot of people who don't have a lot of strong, robust relationships with their parents, who in the community, in work, or they're not working. Work for me, right, is focusing on finding purpose, having goals and things that made me happy in life, personally made me happy in life, independent of sex and relationships. So it's just kind of this weird thing. You gotta trick yourself, into find things like, whether for me it was playing music, modding games, making games, writing. I was writing a lot of science fiction and cyberpunk, and I wrote for Mythaxis, some smaller online science fiction fantasy e-zines. Just join writing circles or playing games also, but try to surround yourself with more positive communities if you can. That those tend to help. And eventually, discussing a variety of topics from cyberpunk authors, artificial intelligence to techno-sociopolitics to religion to everything under the sun you can think of on the William Gibson board. And so, and I don't know what the equivalent of that would be today, but, just finding people who are groups of people who are doing something that you're interested in, that are really have passion and love for that thing, whether that's, surfing or skateboarding or, frisbee or, making models or, and a lot of times, tabletop, games can be good because there's something different about being in person with other people talking. And not always, but there's something about pure anonymity and mass anything goes communication that can lend itself toward a lot more negative and disingenuous bad faith communication, where that doesn't really fly so much in person because you're actually there with other people and it's harder to just brush them off. So that kind of stuff is really good. So Holly, the robot, I saw she's known some places, who eventually became my wife. I did not even see as a potential romantic relationship at first. We were friends. We met online, who had discussed everything under the sun that you could hope to discuss, as I mentioned, from religion to Johnny Mnemonic's $500 hooker speech to the military-industrial complex to religion to taking care of little screaming kids because she's the oldest of 9 children, and she had to take care of all those, and I had to take care of 16 to 21-year-olds. A lot of times they're basically children. I mean, a lot of them, they didn't even have reading level at the 3rd grade. Not that you have to become a teacher to have a relationship, but you gotta find something that you can at least discuss with the other person. Anyway, so it was only after meeting in Vancouver in 2007 at a William Gibson meetup. So this is the William Gibson message board meetup. And William Gibson himself, author of Neuromancer, also came down for that, and we met at a place in downtown Vancouver at the park. And it was only after meeting there that anything actually romance or sex like actually happened. And I didn't actually really instigate it either. I was primarily there to meet and hang out with cool people, and I found it interesting and thrilling to be around. And regardless of their bust size, their occipital bone combat preparedness, which is apparently a thing that incels analyze on the various 3D geometry of bone structure that tells you whether they don't really care. We were talking about the deeper meanings behind Burning Chrome and the Sprawl trilogy, and other topics. Not with the hot or notness of people's faces or anything like that. There was actually a pretty good mix. There's maybe a little more guys there, but not. I mean, it was more like 60-40. And actually, after that meetup, well, one of the couples was already a couple that met through the Gibson board, and they already got married there. Another couple got together. Actually, there was I think there's about 50% of the people who showed up to that meetup left with a significant other who they are still with, still in like physically attracted to, in love with, talk to on a regular basis, and are pretty stable, well-adjusted individuals. And they're all pretty weird, nerdy people. They were like, I was there, and I'm pretty. I guess the point there is that the focusing on the interest, which was cyberpunk and science fiction and other things, drew a lot of people who probably would have just wound up. They could have easily just wound up being alone forever in their own little part of the world. And if they tried to just go on a Tinder app or go on a dating thing and just, they could have just kind of given up after a while of not finding people, because a lot of people who go on those apps, those apps select for certain types of people too, right? And tend to be people who judge everything by looking at a picture. That's kind of a crappy way to really, I guess you could go through your life just judging all books by their covers. It's kind of like, if you're a nerd, that's kind of bad. If you're into actually reading the books, doesn't that it's kind of counterproductive, right? So, anyways, from what I've seen of the relationships and the marriages of my friends and family, and other acquaintances, those that have survived have done so because there's something that connects the two people beyond sex, sexual attractiveness, and partying. And this is another thing that it can easily be, forgotten. I feel like, is that, yes, there are some people, obviously, there is some truth to this idea that there are people who are just naturally more attractive. I mean, there's some people who, just look amazing even no makeup on. Like Holly has some sisters, like they can wake up with no makeup and they just always look amazing, and she's really jealous of them. And there's some people who just, it's really going to be really hard to make Scarlett Johansson not look good. It's just, some people just have certain traits, and that's like one aspect of human existence, right? And that's true, right? But the other side of it is, right, people, and there's a lot of people who, Holly has other friends who got more dates. They looked really good, no matter what. They're just like very attractive, and had a lot of sex with a lot, with people. But also, we went back to Canada like this this year, the same time where I did my interview with William Gibson. A lot of the ones who had a lot of relationships, now they're single moms. Like one of them, she's like, she's a single mom trying to take care of a kid. Financially, that's tough. She's doing okay by herself, but again, she doesn't have a lasting relationship. And she it's not like she's like, oh well, I just gonna look for another guy. People are more complex than that. She kind of, I think she probably wishes that she did have somebody to have a longer lasting relationship, but it can be difficult when you meet people in person. You meet people and you hook up at parties, right, or in bars, or on Tinder, right? And people are there to hook up, to have sex. People who are coming there with that mentality of, I just come in here to have sex. If you just met somebody and you talk for one night about you had fun drinking and then you have sex, what is actually there that's connecting you together? Even if you're both super attractive, like you're like, one of you is like looks like The Rock or Jason Momoa, and one of you looks like Scarlett Johansson, and what is actually going to keep you together when you wake up in the morning and you have to talk, and when you have to go, what are we going to do today? Well, I like to go, rock climbing and this and that, and, or I just want to go to the mall and, shop and watch movies all day or whatever, right? When we went back to meet up again with Holly's friends in Canada, they a lot of them kind of wish that they had a more stable, loving relationship. They're kind of looking at Holly and I, and, we're like being together with our kids, and one of them, she's very pretty, looked really, very attractive, very curvy, etc., etc. Met a guy at a St. Patrick's Day party, really, handsome, tall, strong-jawed guy at a St. Patrick's Day party, got drunk, had sex, that might not have been the first time, there might have been other, sex that was being had, and had a kid, and, what happened was torturous custody battle with this guy, where they found out in the next month that, we really don't have anything in common, and I don't really like you. She's like, I don't really like him because he's kind of an asshole, and he is kind of just doesn't have a job, doesn't want to do anything, just wants to sleep around. He didn't have much motivation in his life, and he didn't really like doing the things that she liked to do. And there's a lot of differences there. And they broke up, but there was this long, drawn-out custody battle between him and her. And at one point, he even kidnapped her child, and she didn't know where her son was. The family and his family had some financial resources, and they went to court. There was like lying, there's backstabbing, and every week, every other day, having to see this person that you personally dislike, but is the father of a child, and having to reconcile, just psychological trauma, just constantly for years, right? And fear, paranoia, worrying about your child, what's going to happen. And she couldn't even leave that town because of legal entanglements. It was just like a decade, right, of just emotional, psychological, financial trauma. You're having to go to court. Your time is being sunk into this. It's like being stuck in a prison. It's a prison of your poor early decisions, right? And early decisions in your romantic life, right? And so, in a certain sense, like a lot of individuals who don't have sex for the first 30 years of their life, you might be, on the one hand, it's like some things are like, life isn't going as the way you want, but on the other hand, you're shielded from a lot of eventualities like that can happen. From what I've seen, like, from my friends and family and acquaintances and people that I know, those relationships that have survived have done so because there's something that connects the two people beyond just sexual attraction or partying or drinking or whatever it is. And so having those interests, I feel like, and some people ask, like, Holly every day she gets questions from, all of Holly's friends are like, oh my God, I wish that my, boyfriend, or I wish my husband would stop, arguing with me, and I wish he'd pick up some slack. And, we're just constantly fighting and bickering. And I had many friends that had, girlfriends that just be like sniping at each other constantly, just negative towards each other the whole time. And it's like, it was kind of telling, like, Holly was in a Protestant church at the time, and the pastor, we had to do these kind of marriage counseling sheets where you fill out everything, like your financial, your future, children, where you want to live, personal hobbies, work, career, your 10-year future, where you want to end up, what financially, what's financial stability you want to have. Do you want to live in a house? Do you want to live in a rural? You want to live in a city? All this kind of stuff. What are you, how are you going to work out school? All that kind of stuff. What country? Because we're from two different countries. And we feel this long, basically life plan exam. The goal is trying to see like how close they match up, right? And so most of the time, the couples, they get like 10% because they haven't talked about anything. Right? A lot of the time, like you just like, well, we know we like having sex, we like drinking and going to the club together, and that's what they have in common, right? And but when we filled it out, we had like 98%, almost 100% match. And why? Because we had been long distance, and we had been talking. We had been interested in each other, and not just in each other for any attractive, interested in each other's minds, personalities. We had things to do and things to talk about beyond sex and beyond partying, because we couldn't do that because we were long distance, right? And so, and we'd already talk about all these things. We talk about what do you want your kids to go to school? What job do you want? Where do you see yourself? What careers do you see yourself pursuing? What are your goals in life? Like, what do you want to achieve? Like, do you want to help people? Do you want to make tons of money? Do you want to live in? Do you want to have like 3 yachts? Do you want to have like a 3-bedroom house? Do you want to have a 1-bedroom house? Do you want to have like an apartment? Do you want to make $1 million? Do you want to have like what the society deems as success? Do you have like a higher calling? Do you want to go on religious missions? Do you want to be in the Peace Corps? Do you want to like dedicate your time to being an investigative journalist in the Gaza Strip? Like, what do you want to do, right? Both of you, right? What do you want to do in life? And we'd already kind of talked all of that through. Like, we've talked all of that through because through all of our discussions, through the William Gibson board, and then later on through like emails, and we had been talking like basically every day for hours for 4 years. Without getting bored of each other. And now it's been more like 10 to maybe about 12 years, and we still talk for hours every day. And I love talking to her every day. I'm not like bored. I'm not like gonna move on. She's not like, oh, I'm gonna find someone to quote unquote do some this stuff. It just seems like it just like I think of it as just like it just sounds kind of ridiculous. It just sounds kind of like it just I don't know. It does. I can kind of understand like how you would think that, like it's kind of like if you live in a world where your only options were like eating like roaches and flies. I mean, not to put down those eating like feces and tar. You're like, well, like like the tar is so much better than the feces, right? But now we're like in a world where you can eat like human food. I mean, 'cause that's what I feel like a lot of these kind of places are. I love my wife more than anything else. She's my best friend. I love talking to her, and we have a great relationship, and I don't see it getting worse. We agree on it. We don't fight. We don't get into really arguments. And there's and it's not like because like we're just like really super just passive and go along with everything. Obviously like I have passionate feelings about certain things. If you pay attention, if you play any of my games or listen to any of my live streams, I have strong feelings about things. I don't just go along with everything. I got fired from multiple jobs for disagreeing with their culture, as I mentioned. And I left an entire city and everyone that I knew on that city and my family to be in a place because I disagreed with them. So it's not like I don't have disagreements with things, right? But we don't have disagreements with things. Why? Because we've worked through, discussed, and talked through basically almost anything that could come up in our life. We've already talked through it before it's happened, and we know the plan. We're on the same page. We know what we're going to do with our kids. We know. If one of us gets sick, if something happens, we know. We know what we're looking for in our life. We're neither of us is looking to like make billions of dollars or have sex with more Chads or Stacys or like this. Just sounds like I don't know. Like that whole concept, it just sounds kind of like I don't know. It's like going from like eating steak to eating like meat flavored cardboard. It just like that just sounds disgusting to me. Like I don't know. It could be just that where we're at now is just really good. If I really think about it, it's hard to really think about it and not kind of get like teary. But because it is, and like and I want people who aren't. I want the lonely, nerdy, geeky, kind of weird and socially ostracized young guys and girls to have the opportunity to get out of the meat flavored cardboard ghetto that is the certain ways that people view internet relationships, and particularly the way that the incels view it, because that is and it's hard to do it. I know when you're young, it's the world, everything seems like this is the way that life is and will always be. That has been the case for throughout the late 20th century. And it certainly was for me, and but things can and will change. Don't think that's the end all and be all, because it certainly wasn't for me. And I know we're not the only ones who are in this situation. As I mentioned, the other people who are in from the Gibson board, and not only them, other people who have met and found significant others. That's one great thing about the internet. See, that wouldn't even be possible. Right? That wouldn't even be possible for us to have met a guy from a small island in the middle of the Pacific, 3,000 miles away from some farm girl from Canada, right? Terrorists, like where the ground freezes for 6 months out of the year. There's like grizzly bears coming out of the woodwork to it's just like we were so far away, but we were able to connect thanks to the internet, right? And it's kind of like we should use the good. Obviously technology is agnostic. It's not inherently good or evil. Atomic energy can be used to kill 200,000 people in an instant and cause generations of cancers and birth defects and traumatize the society, or it can make energy that can power and run an entire community and give make so many great things happen for a town or a state or a country, right? So the internet, similarly, you can use it for this thing that happened, which is like I met my wife, and also Near Feud is something that I've been able to make a game and sell that would never have been possible in the 90s. Some guy make a point and click adventure game hand painted by himself. I did the art, programming, writing, everything by myself, and try to sell it. That would have never flown in the 90s, but I can do it now. And so it's like I'm like getting all these benefits from the internet, but I think the key is like really getting all these benefits by using this technology in ways that are positive and empowering and makes life better, right? And I think like it's just a matter of the way that you choose to use it and being like really conscious and not using it in the negative way, because you can also use the internet, right, to go on certain self-reinforcing negativity echo chambers, to isolate yourself away and into just hate, self-hatred, hatred of others, and eventually that can lead to suicide, or sometimes in some cases like the mass murder, and that's another thing the internet can do. That radicalization and hatred is like that is the atom bomb of the internet technology, right? And the ability to hook up with people who will make you happier than you could ever possibly be, and give you personal success, and fulfill your creative dreams, is the nuclear power plant positive technology of that is the internet, the uses of it. So anyway, so that's what I think. So it really, like, I feel kind of too like spoiled by it now. It's like, I wish more people could have that experience. I wish more of these young guys, and they wouldn't have to be mourning the deaths of really talented, like, and I will tell you, like, Amuro has an amazing voice. This guy sounds like the 90s movie. That's what I call him. He's the 90s movie announcer voice. You just listen to it. There's a clip. He's a good-looking, like, he's really tall guy, really great, and, like, I mean, I don't know all the specifics, but I kind of know that he tried a lot of things, and part of it's the kind of whatever the reason is, right? I just wish that more of these people, I wish that more people could have the positive results from mass global communications that I have had, and less people who came from a similar place that I came from socialization and from negativity and bullying and all those bad things, come from that same place, and being a computer nerd and cyberpunk and all these other things, and come from that, and more of them can take the better positive path rather than the negative one. Anyway, so that's my hope. That's kind of why I'm doing this. I do enough talking about the big picture things. I kind of want to make this more about talking directly to my fellow nerds and gamers and computer geeks. I mean, part of this was like, I kind of felt bad to even call myself gamer, because a lot of the things that were becoming associated and have become associated with it. It's like, really wish that the word gamer itself didn't have such connotations that it has come to have. I think that is a symptom of the internet nuclear bomb being utilized more than the internet nuclear energy use of it. I think that's a symptom of it. And it's personal consequences, man. Personal consequences for people that I care about. I mean, I'm a Euro Akago. Big up to you, man. You're an awesome guy. He was such a positive guy. He's just, he worked so hard on the he got his voice acting to me, like, on time. Did like 5 takes. I swear to God, this guy, he did like King Warren's lines, and those are freaking. I can get kind of Shakespearean. Sometimes I can have long. He has some of the most oratory. He had a long speeches. He did like 5 takes of it. I swear to God. And then I asked him, can you please try it again, but with this tone? Please slow it down a little bit. Please try it, like, can you do it like, Alec Baldwin crossed with Donald Trump, crossed with the bad guy from Deus Ex. And he was like, yeah, I can do that. And he did it. Like, he did it. And he did it. Like, I paid him, but, he went the extra mile. He was such a nice guy. He was such a friendly guy. Like, it's just like, it kind of floored me. I'm like, when I heard that, he'd taken his life, I was just, it was just like, it's kind of like, like I had students, like the kids from, the street, and I knew one of them got into, shortly after, he left the program, didn't finish, the STEM program. He was on my robotics, but he was in the robotics team for a little while. He's one of the ones who was more into, he was into like rapping and, F the police, and he's doing his Ice Cube raps. He's like, he started dealing pot when he was in like 6th grade, and, we heard about it and saw it on the news. He He was stabbed by a rival gang and he died. Like a block away from the church in which I was running my STEM program. And I, I remember thinking, like, was there something? Could I have done something more? Like, did I, could I have tried harder to keep him in the program? Did I do something that pushed him away and got him involved in gang violence? That negative culture. Was there, but at the same time, you can't dwell on that kind of stuff. Like, was there something I could have done that could have stopped him from dying? Because there are a lot of kids. Every day. There's just kids, hundreds of kids, thousands of kids living there with no parents, right? Thinking their only outlet was to boost cars, deal drugs, get into negative activity. You can't save can't save everyone. Anyways, and also to Tron, like, like, I don't know, just if there's anybody out there that that's like in a bad place, they are talking about taking their life, talking about what, just talking about, like, my life is hopeless, nothing to do about it, and try to, if you try to reach out. Like, I'm not an expert on how with these particular things, like this is me trying to do something in this community. I could have easily been one of these people, I've had that thought. Like, I've written some of those incel posts, like, not on the incel forums, but to my, like, on my blog, just like, I'm never gonna have job success. I'm never gonna have financial. I'm never gonna be a successful member of society. I'm never gonna have a relationship with women. I'm never gonna have sex. My life is hopeless. This is it. I got the rope. Like this. I'm jumping. I'm going to school and I'm gonna do something bad. Like I have that. Like, I could have been one of these people easily, and I just don't want to see that happen as much as we can not have that happen. Anyway, so yeah, that's Silver Spook. Yeah, this is it's a different video than I usually do. But thanks everybody for listening to it, and feel free to give your input. If you think about it, try to do what you can to make the world a better place and help people out.